angel aura. It's white and shiny, and this is something that I have a lot of angel aura around my home because it brings in, hi Monica, how are you? Because the angel aura crystals bring in a lot of angelic energy, and I work in a very high realm with angelic energy. And the other type of crystals that I work with a lot are the amethyst crystals. And amethysts are beautiful. They're very high frequency. They usually bring us into a higher level of consciousness if we can. And I have a lot of amethyst around me in my home and in the places I work, because not only does it clear a lot of, they say, the electromagnetic rays and things like that that emanate from computers and electrical equipment, but also it's very much compatible with the energy of Saint Germain, Lord of the Seventh Ray, which is violet. I work in a lot of violet light in my healing work, and so I keep a lot of amethyst around me because it raises my vibration and it really resonates with me. And oftentimes my experiences with crystals are pretty much from my gut. Like Donna said, today they use crystals in Reiki for aligning and to add intuitive diagnostics. And I can see that because oftentimes crystals are openers of energy. There's so many different types of crystals and things that we could talk about tonight. Maybe if you guys are interested, one evening we could have someone come on with me to talk about crystals. That would be awesome. So I'll tell you what I know about crystals and my own experience with them in my opening and as a divination tool. I've gone through various phases with crystals and using crystal in my energy work in my life. I do use crystals in Reiki a lot to balance and heal energy and bring in energetic healing. It's my practice when I go to lay out my Reiki bed before I have a client on it, sometimes even for a day before. Especially if I'm going to have a Reiki circle with my ladies. A lot of you know I work with a breast cancer group. I will charge the bed with crystals where I feel they're necessary. And oftentimes I do this based on intuition, what feels right to me. I don't always go to a book and say, oh, this crystal's for this, I'm going to put it by the head, or this crystal's for this, I'm going to put it by this chakra. I really work off what I feel and what my gut tells me and how the energy feels for me and if it's in alignment and if it's right. And that seems to work really well. So I would say you don't need to be a crystal guru. You can really just use your own energy to decipher what goes where and what feels right to you. I do always try and put the darker or crystals that are really for dispelling negativity towards the bottom of the Reiki bed, because I feel like the energy comes out through the feet and we can clear it that way. And Monica, you're never late. Don't worry about that, because these are always available for replay on the Facebook and YouTube site. And what happened to me with crystals was I started to be introduced as crystals. I never really knew anything about crystals in the very beginning of my journey spiritually. And what I did even then was I had gotten a crystal Bible book, and I used to look up crystals and what it was all about every time. Hi, Joanne. And so, you have the typical crystals that like green crystals are for healing and certain things. And I became into them very quickly. Hi, Suzanne. I hope everything's great where you are. And I became interested in crystals pretty quickly. And again, just did it from intuition. I did study them enough to know like clear quartz is great for meditating because it's clear quartz and it's symbolic of, clearing the mind and letting energy come through. And I would look up a crystal now and again if I had a particularly challenging thing and what crystal you would use for that. And so, I tried to use on the color spectrum, like pink crystals would bring in joy or happiness for me, etc. And I used crystals a lot when I was first doing healing on myself and trying to raise my own consciousness. And I found that they did connect to me spiritually in a lot of ways. I used to use Lemurian crystals, which are a type of, almost looks like a clear quartz, but it's a Lemurian, it's a different type. And Lemurians are almost like record keepers. They're supposed to really bring us back to past lives and help us see things that we need to see more clearly. And for a big part of my beginning journey, I used Lemurians, and I used to hold them when I meditated, and I would also look into this very large Lemurian that I had and still have today, and I would see scenes and see things, different things in the crystal. And I remember that was called scrying, and I remember I would do that often in the beginning stages of my spirituality because it really opened me to seeing things and making my mind clearer. And then as I progressed and just really never became worried about, oh, this crystal's for X and this crystal's for Y and how I should be using them. I really used them intuitively, what felt right to me, and then would study the crystal. So I remember as I did that, it getting deeper and really accentuating my connections, especially in meditation. And what proved this to me was one time I did a meditation with certain crystals that really resonated with me and had a complete past life come through. And that was the first time that had happened. That was several years ago. And I really believe the crystal was a conductor for that. It opened that part of my body, the chakra, and the image and the memory of that. Another time that really proved to me that crystals could be a divination tool was when I was getting ready to do a reading. By this time I had started to do readings in my life. And there was a certain crystal I always held during readings because I just felt like it opened me a lot. And I remember it was in another room and my client was there sitting on the chair, and I said, oh, please excuse me a moment, I just have to get something. And I went to pick up the crystal in the other room, and as soon as it hit my hand, a name came. And I went back in and I said to her, well, who is Michael? Is Michael someone? And she goes, oh yes, that's my father who just passed. And I knew they had given me the name through the crystal. So crystals can definitely be a conductor for you if you connect your energy with them. And I think they're a beautiful divination tool to use. And if you're going to start to use crystals, I would let the crystal be your guide to the research. Like, don't necessarily look up, oh, this crystal is for this, let me go buy this crystal. I would go to a crystal store or a metaphysical shop that sells crystals and hold some and see what resonates with you, because certain colors are going to be calling you in, certain textures, certain attributes, they'll come through with the crystals naturally, instead of like researching, oh, let me buy this blue crystal because it's for arthritis or whatever. No, go to the store, go to, the person who sells crystals or deals in crystals, and walk around and see what resonates with you. I just recently bought something from a supplier that I went to a supply house, and I didn't know why I was drawn to it, but I was, and when I held it, I felt an instantaneous connection. And so when I came home, I then looked up what it was, and it made complete and perfect sense to me with something that I was working on in my life. So in that's how I would suggest working with crystals instead of the opposite. If you want to become really versed in crystals and be able to teach about crystals and work with crystals in your work, then that would be a different story, and you would of course want to research them. But I think the best way to begin is let them come to you, so to speak. And so that was my experience in the beginning. It's still the way I work with crystals to this day. I'll pull in something that is calling to me and resonating with me. Like even when I went to that crystal warehouse, I walked around the aisles and let something speak to me, call to me, what resonates with me, what was I being drawn to, either through the color or the texture or the area of the world it came from or something. And that's how I would suggest using them. But again, if you really want to become well-versed in them, there's a great book called The Crystal Bible. I think every spiritual person has it on their shelf in their library, and that was a great book for me because it's in alphabetical order, and it has like every crystal that was there at the time it was printed. And of course, since then, there's other crystals that have been discovered. So that's how I use crystals. I also will set up the table if I'm doing a psychic reading or an astrology reading. I do put crystals around me, ones that I actually feel resonate with the person who's coming in for the reading, the client. I have one or two crystals that maybe resonate for me to help me connect better and to use as a connector. But for the most part, intuitively now, I will turn on to the energy of whoever is coming to me for a session. And in that moment, I will go to my crystal box and where I store my crystals, and I'll kind of run my hands over them or just kind of over the top of the box, and Spirit will speak to me in a way and say they need this crystal, they need a selenite, they need a grounder, they need something, to bring them to a higher level or something to ground them. Hi, Linda. So that's how I work with crystals, is completely intuitively. I do have a basic enough knowledge to know what most crystals are used for. If someone comes to me and asks me, oh, what crystal would help me, I can tell them, and that is part of your research, obviously. But I think the best research is doing it intuitively. For instance, when I was drawn to Lemurians, it was because Saint Germain is one of my main guides, and I was working in his energy, and that Lemurian crystals tie in greatly with Saint Germain. So, and anything violet, like I said, I keep a lot of amethyst around me because I work in the violet spectrum, which is the highest vibration of light, and I use that to heal. I call that in. A lot of light workers work in white light. I don't. I work in violet light. It's higher on the visible spectrum. So, so that's just why I keep a lot of amethyst around me. I'm naturally drawn to it. So that would be how I work with crystals. If anybody has any questions about crystals, I can answer them. Just chime in whenever you feel like it. Let me know you're out there. Or if you have a question about something else, I'll pretty much answer anything tonight. And then what happened to me at one point was when I was really deep into my work and I was reaching a certain level, this was probably about, I guess, 4 or 5 years ago maybe, I found for a brief period of time, actually kind of about a year, I couldn't wear crystals or use crystals. Anytime I went near, especially certain crystals, heart rate would just rapidly increase. I was like, the vibration that I was at that time was not jiving with crystals. And so I actually had to give up even wearing, some of the things that were made for me and crystals that up until that time had been dear to me. I used to keep them with me at all times. I'd have a pouch on me or have them in, pockets or whatever. I literally had to clear and put everything away and not have anything near me, any crystals near me for about a year. They would just overpower me. And there are still some crystals to this day that I cannot wear because I guess my vibration is so high that when I wear them, they really make me go a little wonky. And then slowly started to introduce the crystals back into my vibration to the point where now I can wear a lot of the things that I used to wear. This is a chakra necklace that I use in all my healing work. It was made by someone at Intuition. Dana at Intuition made this, and she's an angel channeler and a channeler of all dimensions. And this just spoke to me when I went in her store one day, and I had to have it. And I wear this whenever I work in any realm, especially psychic work and healing work. And I don't usually wear it when I meditate in personal meditation, but I will wear it when I do group things. It's something that truly, truly opens and expands my chakras to collect the energy and receive messages. So I align with it. So that's how I would, is one Herkimer. I can't go near Herkimer. I get the vibration just, I get jittery. And the other thing I can't wear is certain crystals, quartz crystals. But the big one for me, Linda, is, what is it? It's the green moldavite, which is from another planet, obviously. It's from meteors. And if I go anywhere near moldavite, I have to have some other grounding stone. I bought a beautiful moldavite necklace once early on in my spiritual journey. And as soon as I wear it, my heart rate just starts to race out of my body. I can't go near moldavite. So I guess it depends on our vibration, But and then there are other crystals that I'm really not that sensitive to. And I'm not as sensitive to crystals as some of the people that I know and have come into contact with. Hi, Diane. Some of the people that I know in the spiritual world, they are so into crystals, like they can actually walk into a room and know if a crystal is somewhere. I'm not that sensitive to crystals, but I will have reactions. I was walking around his shop, and as soon as I passed a certain shelf, I got such a sensation in my abdomen that was like pulling me. And so it was a Reiki crystal, a healing crystal, apophyllite or apophyllite, I think it's called. And beautiful crystal. And I put that, now I use that in my healing work because it drew me in, and it aligned me. And so I knew it would do that for someone else in my vibration. So one of the first tools I used was crystals. At the time I was drawn to them, I was extremely in detriment in my life and undergoing a lot of tragedy. So I think that in some way the crystals became almost like a security blanket for me. Like if I had this crystal with me, I was going to be okay. And maybe that wasn't a good thing, but maybe it was. I don't know. I can only say that it did give me comfort for a while. So, and at times I still sleep with a crystal on my night table or under my pillow. And I still do have a lot of those crystals that I had in the beginning of my journey. However, I have actually either through deliberacy or through coincidence, which we all know doesn't exist. Coincidences, right, are meant to happen. have had a lot of those taken away from me. And I think it's because I was done with that energy, and it held an energy of a very specifically negative time. So what happened is those crystals, some of them just spontaneously broke or cracked. Some of those crystals just were missing. And some of them, I deliberately actually threw in the ocean and said, okay, I'm done with this part of my life. This crystal will always hold the vibration of this life, this part of my life, and I need to just purge it, and I let it go. They will sometimes hold a vibration of tragedy or mourning or grief. I did have a lot of crystals that comforted me when I was grieving, and then let go of them afterwards. A lot of rose quartz were used in the beginning of my journey and things like that. And I did go to the beach and throw them in the ocean when I was purged, because I didn't want to hold the grief with me. So whatever feels right in your intuition is probably the way the crystals are going to work for you. And like I said, it's just one divination tool, but use your intuition. And that's what I really wanted to say about any discussion as the next few Tuesdays come, when we discuss some of these tools like tarot and pendulums and all kinds of things. Your intuition is the strongest leader and the strongest teacher for you. You can take a class on something and learn the particulars about it. You can learn all about crystals, and you can learn the tarot, and you can learn how to use a deck of oracle cards, and learn how to use a pendulum, and the I Ching, and astrology, and all of those tools to learn about your higher self and connect better. But at the end of the day, it's really your intuition that you have to really be allowing to come through. Because no one knows better than you know, and no one knows you better than you know. And although we all can go for readings and healings to empower us and bring us to an opening or a breakthrough in our life, it's our own intuition and where we really aspire to be in our life that always is inside us, waiting to come out and break through. So no matter who or what teacher you go to, always depend on your own intuition to resonate with you. And if something feels negative, don't keep it. If something feels not right, explore that and get to the bottom of it and do what's right for you. I have gone to crystal shows and spent a lot of money on a crystal only to come home and feel really weird with it and dump it. So don't ever feel like it's something someone tells you. It could be something that resonates within you that is out of alignment, but it could also be that you're picking up energy from someone who handled that crystal, or something like that. So there's ways to clear them. There's ways to designate them for what you want them to be for. My healing crystals that I use on my Reiki bed are extremely sacred. They're never left out. They're always in a very sacred box or place, because those energies have to remain very pure, and I really do believe we transfer vibration. So whatever feels right to you is right, and whatever feels wrong to you has a strong reason for being wrong. Don't doubt. Know what you know. That always remember, you know what you know. There are some things we just know, and don't let anyone talk you out of that. And that's great advice that's carried me through a lot of my spiritual development and also into a lot of things in my life. We're given intuition as a divine gift for a reason, so don't ignore it, because that's like slapping God in the face, So Monica says, I have some crystals I bring to work and don't like when people touch them. Yeah, well, that's because they shouldn't touch your crystals. Your crystals should be very sacred. And whenever you're around someone else's crystal, always ask before you touch them. When you bring crystals home from a crystal shop, there's ways for you to, cleanse them. You can look that up on Google, and whatever feels right to you, use that as a cleansing. I, even in my, cleanse them regularly. You can put them out in the moonlight. We have a beautiful full moon coming in Saturday, which I'm going to do another video about. The way to use these type of things, whether it's the crystals or the tarot or something else, is you want to center yourself before you do whatever exercise you're doing. You want to, center yourself by really clearing your mind and going into a place within you that feels connected to God, connected to whoever that is for you, connected to source, energy source that created you, connected to creation. And when you feel that connection, that's when you pull a card. That's when you throw the I Ching. That's when you work with your crystal. That's when you go into a meditation. Because by doing that, you're asking for right action and divine purpose. And by the same way that we cleanse a crystal, you can take that crystal and designate it for something. This is the crystal that will always bring me courage. This is the crystal that brings an Archangel Raphael. Whatever you assign energy to will be the energy for you. And I think that's a really good way to work. It's worked really good for me. So I would, kind of advise that. So whatever crystals you purchase that have resonated with you, give them a meaning to you and designate them as that. Whether, this is my courage crystal, this is my happy crystal, whatever it may be. If that's the energy you think they should be, then it is. And it's the same for all of you who have either had a reading with me or been part of my beautiful astrology class that I've done these last couple of weeks. You will be invited to a closed group on Facebook, which is all about the astrology, Zancuda Astrology. So if you have been invited to that, please do subscribe. That's only for people who have come to me for a private reading or who are in my classes. There's a lot of information that's going to be posted in that site in the weeks to come. It already is up there for those of us who really have an interest in astrology. Thank you so much. I love you all. This is the energy I source my life from, and I hope to see you all soon. Good night. You can find me on Zancuda Official on Instagram, Zancuda Facebook, and Zancuda on YouTube. I need subscribers, so go over there and check me out. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.